Welcome to the morning nerdy news. Starting off, we're going to get into gaming news with Borderlands 3, where it is getting another paid DLC, crossplay, split screen, and 4K at 60 frames per second on next gen. This article comes to us from Wccftech, where they highlight the different points that occurred during Gearbox's digital showcase and new updates that happened. 4K at 60 is going to be incredible for next gen. However, I think that is trumped by the split screen. They are going to have 4-player split screen for their game. Now, I'm personally a huge fan of in-person split screen. This means you can sit down and play with family members, play with your kids, play with your friends when they come over to hang out. This is something that I used to do all the time. It was one of the best experiences ever, is to just be able to sit down on the couch, have your buddies there and play. You'd sit down in college in the dorm or something, and you all just got to hang out in the common area or however you wanted to do it. But just some of the best experiences of my life were on split screen co-op. Now I'm going to move over into the main headline news. So the other day, Bloomberg reported that TikTok sale is not going to happen to Microsoft, and that Oracle is supposed to be getting it, but they're not a winner either. So effectively what's happened in this is they've announced that Oracle is planning to purchase the international rights to TikTok. Now, here's the thing about this. In the ban for that setup, it required that a US company purchase this. So I don't know that some sort of leeway will be given for this type of setup. It's entirely possible that TikTok will still be banned in the US over this, because as it was reported on TechCrunch today, we have this news that broke that neither Microsoft nor Oracle or any US company will be able to buy TikTok US per the Chinese state media. And this really puts kind of a nail in the coffin for what's going to happen. If the international rights aren't enough to get around this ruling, then we're going to see TikTok get banned in the US, because they want that source code access. They want to make sure that everything is secure, and Microsoft had promised to do that. That was one of the big reasons that for Microsoft acquiring this, is to make sure that this was done legally and properly for how the algorithms worked. And China doesn't want us to have access to those algorithms, which just kind of makes it seem like it's even fishier than before. Now, it could just be because they're tired of being bullied by Trump. But that's a whole other argument, because the politics with that are a big deal right now, and there's been a lot of tit for tat in regards to all of this. But at the end of the day, we do know that in November, it was proven that they had hidden code tracking things without people's permission. So we know that there has been some skeevy stuff going on with that before, and who knows, maybe there's something else hidden that we're not aware of, but we just got to keep an eye out. We'll see. We don't have much time left before this goes official and we end up possibly losing this. Continuing on, we have some cool news in regards to the Squadrons game. So a Twitter post was put up that said, "Good news, pilots. As you may know, Squadron supports HOTAS, throttle and joystick controls on PC. And they are happy to announce that it'll also work on PS4 and Xbox One, as well on a patch that will be available the moment the game goes live." So hopefully this also means that we're going to see this on the Series X and the PS5, I would presume so. And moving on to some PlayStation 5 news, they have announced that their PlayStation 5 showcase broadcast will be live this Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So mark that should be 4 p.m. Eastern. They've probably had this kind of ready, but we're waiting on determining price until after Microsoft showed their cards, which they did last week, with $299 for the Series S and $499 for the Series X. So we'll find out what happens with that. But speaking of the Series S, we have some news over on VGC about the Xbox Series S won't run Xbox One versions of the backwards compatible games. The system isn't as powerful, so it can't get that next gen boost. It's if you stick in your current game, It may have a slight incremental jump up for in between those, depending on what developers decide to produce for it. But I would expect that in the short term that we're going to have many games that just opt to go with the 1X rather than putting resources and having developed for the 1S, the 1X, the Series S, and the Series X. That just seems like a whole lot of development going into this. Developers already do this on PC in a way with the sliding bar and scale. They may not want to have to take the time for optimization at 4 different levels, where on a PC you slide that scale, it automatically adjusts things. This is going to require them to actually make sure that everything is optimized and functions smoothly for all of it. So just going to have to kind of watch out on that one. And then we have some Apple news in regards to Xbox. So what happened here is Apple had announced that they were altering their policy in regards to streaming services, and Microsoft has responded to this. So over on IGN, they covered this. They got a direct quote. But basically what's happened here is Microsoft said this is not a good alternative because they require an actual app for every game that you can stream. And that app has to go through certification and is still subject to the 30% price tax. Basically, if you have Game Pass and you're in there and you want to play, let's say you want to play Grounded. Well, you have to download an app just to stream Grounded. But now you're done with Grounded. You've decided that you want to hop over and you want to play the original Final Fantasy VII. Well, you have to download a whole other app just to play the streaming of Final Fantasy VII. And, okay, so you've streamed these 2 games. You're like, okay, 2 games, no big deal. But all of a sudden, you start getting to your 4th, your 5th, your 12th, your 50th game on there. And these games cycle in and out. So all of a sudden, you have apps that don't run at all anymore. You have apps that just cluttering up your screen, cluttering up your memory, because you have to have one for every single one of these. And while they say you can have it all function where it would connect to a single app in order to launch those other apps, it just becomes cumbersome and a problem and too much of a hassle. So Microsoft is not going to be doing this with xCloud. In other news, Ninja is back on Twitch with exclusive multi-year deal. This is over on GameSpot. He had an exclusive deal with Mixer, and this deal was worth, I think, $10 million. And when Mixer got sold to Facebook, he had it in his contract to know that this was going to happen in advance. And he chose not to sign with Facebook. And he's signed back on with Twitch. Now, the details of this agreement are not listed in here. We don't know how much Ninja is actually making. But we do know that Ninja had more viewers on Twitch than he ever did with Mixer. And in final news, we're getting over into computer tech. And we have a possible leak of AMD's next-gen Radeon RX 6000 series, which is the RDNA 2 graphics cards, at the equivalent of a 2080 Ti stock unit. Not an overclocked, just the base stock unit, that basically the Founders Edition that you could purchase. There are actually 2 different SKUs for Big Navi coming out for the RDNA 2, and it's believed that the one that is shown here, where it performs as the equivalent of the 2080 Ti, will run on the Navi 22 SKU, so effectively about the equivalent of a 3070. This could be the low-end card at a Navi 22 SKU, and then we could see a Navi 21 SKU come out to compete against the 3080. Alright, that's going to be it for today. Thanks for hanging out. Remember, if you haven't already, to click that follow button. If you are watching this over on YouTube, make sure you click subscribe, and be sure to hang out with me over on Twitter as The Gray Falcon,